welcome to the frosty Tuesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Glad you're able to spend a few minutes with us as we roll into the work week. And if you were up before the sun this morning, which isn't difficult these days with how dark things are so late into the morning, you saw some temperatures that were quite frigid out there this morning. I woke up and checked the thermometer on the deck, and it was minus 14 degrees. That's pretty cold. And if you've been following this Arctic outflow that we've been dealing with here over the last few days, you'll notice that this doesn't normally happen here, at least at this time of the year. Now, I get it. We get to minus 14. We get colder than minus 14, but I don't think it happens a lot in December, at least before Christmas. So it was certainly a bit of a scrape on the windshield this morning, and I'm sure that many of you had the same experience that I did, trying to chisel the ice off the vehicle to get into work today. It was certainly cold. The good news is the forecast is looking a little better as we get deeper into the work week. I think by midday, maybe tomorrow or into Thursday, we'll start to see a break into this temperature swing that we've been dealing with. We'll see temperatures tonight. I think Alistair said that we're going to see them to go to about minus 8. Tomorrow, the good news is the temperature will rise to about 6 degrees and stay above zero most of the day. Now, there are a few showers mixing with flurries expected in the morning, but otherwise, we will see the temperature around 6 degrees. It'll stay about 4 degrees overnight, and then 8 on Thursday before we slip back below zero as we head into the weekend. So I don't know about you, but I was is unprepared the word I'm looking for? After the show yesterday and after Vanessa and I cleaned things up here, I went out and went to do my weekly visit to the local grocery store, and coming across that parking lot in the wind that had whipped up by mid-afternoon yesterday. For those of you that don't know, what did the story say today? That that are follically challenged, I think they said, with the hair loss thing. Anyway, it was a little cold on the old dome there going across the parking lot. So I'm glad to see the temperatures warm up. What's going to happen Christmas-wise? Are we going to have a white Christmas? There's an actual, I learn as I go along, there's an actual technical definition for what a white Christmas is. There's a certain amount of snow. There's a certain amount of coverage that has to happen in order for it to be a meteorological white Christmas. So we're going to put Alistair to the test on Friday. And we'll maybe put him into the corner and see if he'll make a prediction on a white Christmas or not. There are folks in Nova Scotia. Did you see the stories last night on the television that I don't think are going to have much trouble with that? Cape Breton really got a good early December dumping of snow. Looked like they got about 15 centimeters up there. I saw some weather stations and some people reporting more than that. New Glasgow area got a good dump of snow yesterday, and already on top of the snow that we got last week. So I think that the white Christmas prediction will be very varied on where it is that you live, which is normal for Nova Scotia, right? Before we go any further, want to say thank you very much to Vanessa Veinotte on the other side of the glass, who's doing an outstanding job as we roll along here. As I say many times on this show, we just couldn't do this talk show without her, and we're very glad that she's there. And I'll tell you what, folks, she was walking by the prize cabinet today, so make sure you stick by your radio. There may be something that is an early stocking stuffer that falls out of the prize cabinet today, and we'll let you know when we know for sure. She never tells me. She just walks by it, and then she'll just kind of hold up these things in the glass between the two, and she'll say, "Look what I got." So anyway, stay tuned. There likely will be a giveaway part of the show today as we roll forward. What's happening in the news? Budget deliberations continue today down at City Hall. City councilors, I know, took a little bit of heat here yesterday on councilors on the hot seat for going through the budget deliberation process and telling folks that we're staring down the barrel of a 10.5% increase in property or in taxes this year, all while getting a 4% raise. Now, to be fair to the city council, it's a formula. They don't sit around and throw a number out there. This is done by committee and so on and so forth. But as many of you pointed out yesterday, it's not a good look for city council to be taking a 4% increase in salary whilst we are in the process of trying to pare down a budget. It would look better. Would it make a huge difference? Probably not a lot, but I think the optics of the whole thing look pretty terrible for council. But they're certainly going to be busy today. They've got a budget meeting starts, I think it starts this hour, and it will go through until later today when the city council meeting will take over. So they're going to be welded to those chairs for some time today as we continue the process. The city did put out yesterday a list of availabilities for you to participate in the budgeting process. And there's a laundry list of them, and I'm not going to run them all down for you. You can get that information by dialing 311 or by going on to the city's website, and they'll have the whole list there. But I truly encourage you to take part in the process. By listening to some of the passion that we hear on the radio here day in and day out when it comes to the city and the city's finances, this is an opportunity for you to directly address the budget committee as they're going through the individual items that make up the budgeting process for the city. Now, they break it down on the website into specific areas, so if there's one area that you're more interested in, or maybe have a suggestion for them, or so on and so forth, you can kind of pick your date and go from there. Obviously, life gets in the way, but there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that, and I would really encourage you to take part in that process because City Council obviously listen to the program, but they will also be there to stare you down and look at your passion when it comes to these things at the budget deliberations. It's a public process, and my experience is not a lot of public participation in it. So get out there if you're at all curious or at all have a comment or a suggestion for City Council as the budget deliberations continue. Other news today, Air Transat. This is becoming a problem for travelers as we get into the Christmas season. Some people have already left. Some people are planning to leave to go away, perhaps to somewhere warm during the holiday season. And we know that Air Transat has a few flights that originate here in Halifax into those sunny destinations throughout the winter. So I would imagine that there are a few people out there that are watching these deliberations go on as they are holding their tickets in their hand and still hoping that they'll get a flight. I understand that Air Transat put on extra flights yesterday and probably will do the same today to offer return service for those that have already left and are worried about not being able to make it home. Airline strikes are always a real inconvenience, and I think they're built by design. Obviously, it's a tried and true union tactic to put maximum pressure onto the employer at the busiest times of the year. It's not exclusive to the airline industry. We've seen it just out our back door here when the last time the Canada Post strike happened at Christmas. That's their busiest time of the year. So you put more pressure onto the ownership, the company. We saw the strikes this year at the universities in Halifax that happened right when the school year started, which is the most leverage that they can get. It's not to say that it's the bad tactic. It certainly gets the attention of everybody involved, but the Christmas season is certainly a busy travel time for many, and I would imagine there are some of those that have perhaps plans to go somewhere warm and are watching this thing unfold. Will it last a long time? They normally don't. But each negotiation is its own beast. Coming into the show today, I was doing obviously what Vanessa and I do before we come on the air is get ready with all of our guests and get preparation. And I saw a flash come across the news wires that the Associated Press has named its male athlete of the year this year. This is, of course, the American setup. And Shohei Ohtani has been named the AP Male Athlete of the Year. I think that's deserved. He is certainly a unique player. Won a World Series. I know, 90 feet. I know. But he is a once-in-a-generation player, I think, is probably the best way to describe Shohei Ohtani. And a guy that can hit home runs like he can and can pitch a complete game and can pitch out of a jam. What an asset that the Dodgers have in him. Anyway, the Associated Press have named Shohei Ohtani as the Male Athlete of the Year. The Canadian press will do the same very shortly. I would imagine within the next couple of days we'll start to hear who the Canadian press athletes of the year and teams of the year will be. And, of course, we'll bring those to you here on the program once they're made, once it's knowledgeable. Have you been following the ongoing situation? We talked with Ken Bagnell yesterday about it, the ongoing drama that is the Olympic hockey arena. Have you been following this? It's wild. It's unfathomable to me that you're building a facility for an Olympic Games, right? We know that there's great costs that come with hosting an Olympic Games, and those costs go up every year. But you have a sport has rules. Now, the ice surface rule, I think, is variable because we've had instances where we've played on double IHF regulation size ice, which is larger than the NHL style ice. We know that the NHL style players are coming to the Olympics this time, so a negotiation happened, and the idea was to have an NHL sized ice surface for the tournament. But what's happened in Italy is that they're behind, and they've built the rink 4 feet short. So instead of it being 200 feet, it's 196 feet. Now, I've seen quotes, I think the CBC had the paper had quotes from Nathan McKinnon and from Sidney Crosby, like, whatever, it's 4 feet. It's like a stride, right? And the way that they'll make it good, as I understand it, is that they will shrink the neutral zone on either side of the red line by 2 feet. The distance from the blue line to the goal lines and then to the boards will remain standard, but the neutral zone, which is for those of you who know what I'm talking about, that's the red line between the two blue lines and where the red line is in the middle. That will be shrunk by 4 feet. And get this. Simon this morning said that they don't think it's going to be ready until like a week and a half or 2 weeks before the first prelim game. They're supposed to have a test tournament at the site. I don't think that's happening because they won't have it done in time. It's the Olympics. I'm going to suggest that ice hockey, men's and women's ice hockey, is probably the premier event of the Olympic Games now. And the rink isn't done, and it's 4 feet short. We'll keep our eye on it. We're going to take our first break here on the program. When we come back, we know that people are facing impossible decisions these days with the rise in the cost of everything, the affordability crisis. People, the month much longer than the paycheck, and some are taking a look at their finances and are unable to keep their animals. What an impossible decision to make. We'll have a conversation with the Deputy Chief Inspector for Nova Scotia SPCA. That's Chief Kevin Strooband when we return. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand here on a Tuesday. Saw this a few days ago on the CBC website, and it reads as follows: the Nova Scotia SPCA say some people in the Cape Breton regional municipality now abandoning their pets because they can't afford to keep them. A report that was before CBRM Council early this month said that the SPCA had a number of calls for animals roaming at large in CBRM, and it's more than doubled in the last year. And it points to I think a growing problem in Nova Scotia, not just CBRM. I imagine it's happening everywhere, where people are forced to make those impossible decisions and just can no longer afford to keep their pets, to keep their animals. And I'm very pleased to welcome to the program today to tell us a little bit more about this and what you can do should you get into that situation. Chief Kevin Strooband with the SPCA here in Nova Scotia. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks for having me today.
Is this happening all across the province, I would imagine, not just in Cape Breton?
You're right. You're absolutely right. It is happening across the province, and it's definitely socioeconomic. People just can't afford to sometimes care for their pets, and what's really unfortunate is that they're kind of doing a disservice. Of course, just letting your pet run free isn't great, but if you can't provide us information on the pet that you unfortunately can no longer keep, we can't share that information with the new owners, and it might be this is a longer process for adoption. So something to consider if people are looking to relinquish their pets.
This is a problem that I can remember back as a kid, right? That, and I'm going to put quotes around this, the dog catcher would be out and there would be dogs roaming around the neighborhood and they'd pick the dogs up and bring them to a shelter. But at least I haven't seen it as frequent as of late until now.
No, and most people wouldn't, right? You might just be in an area, you see a dog one day, you don't see it the next day. We're called to all those areas specifically, so we're seeing it quite frequently. And sure, I'd say in the olden days when, you and I were younger, people, maybe not that old, but people were letting their dogs run more freely than they are now. It seems animals are being elevated as one of the family members. So
right.
That makes it more unfortunate when people have to relinquish their pets, whether it's just letting it run free and not claiming it or calling us and having us pick it up.
Kevin, when animals are at large and the SPCA gets involved, what kind of process is it? Do you go out and try and find the animal and bring it to a shelter?
Yes. So part of our services in Cape Breton is through the bylaw for dogs running at large. So we will respond. We'll send an officer out in one of our vans and we'll see if we can find it and catch it. Quite often it's just an education piece. Some people will say, I know it lives right here, runs all the time. So we give the people education, say, don't let it run. Obviously it could get hit by a car. You'll have vet bills that, might be quite lofty, and you don't want the animal to get injured, right? That's number one.
Right.
But number two, you might get a fine under the bylaw. And again, education is number one. If people don't learn from that, then maybe we have to escalate it further.
Is it a seasonal thing? Do we see it more in the winter and the summer, or is it a 12-month deal?
It always happens. Accidents happen. We completely understand that. But it does seem to be, it's with the seasons when people are going outside, dogs tend to get out more. If you're staying inside, and don't forget too, people, if it's really wintry, blustery day, people aren't going to be out there looking for, whatever, and see an animal running at large and call the SPCA. They're all hibernating in their homes. Right. So it all depends on what people see.
Kevin, should somebody get into a situation where the bills are mounting, there's just not enough money to go around, and they're contemplating having to get rid of their pet and just letting them loose to fend on themselves or for themselves, is there a better option for that? Can the SPCA help out somebody in that situation?
Every situation is different, right? If somebody can't afford very expensive medical bills, it's not like the SPCA can just step in and pay for those.
Right.
But if people are in a situation where they're concerned for their family and they can't afford, the food on their table, don't let your pet get into a situation where the animal's in distress. Give us a call before that. We'll see if there's something we can do, and at least talk with us. Ask our adoption counselors, the people on the phone who can, they're very compassionate people. They can comment on what things can be done, what you might consider that you hadn't before. And worst case scenario, give us turn the animal over. Give us a call to make that arrangement so that we can find your beloved pet a new home where your pet will still thrive and be happy.
Do you see it often? Do you see people that just can't handle it anymore and come to you and turn over their pets?
Unfortunately, we are seeing it more, and we're happy to be that resource. It's emotionally draining for even our staff to do it, but I can't imagine how the people feel having to turn over their pets. So we're going to be as kind and compassionate about doing that as possible, but it is on the increase.
Kevin, obviously, when you catch these animals and you can't locate an owner, or an owner makes that decision to turn these animals over to you, that increases the number of animals that you have in your shelters, and I would imagine that there's a cost that's associated with that as well.
Definitely, and those costs are increasing. Veterinary, we run our own clinics. It still costs us the resources to run those clinics, so that isn't cheap. But you're absolutely right. These costs are increasing for us. If we have, let's say you have a $5,000 surgery you have to have done, and we do it in-house, sure, it's going to be slightly less for us, but we still have to pay for that surgery. And that's where we need the community to step up for those that don't have animals but might want to support the SPCA to say, hey, I'm thinking to make a donation this Christmas.
All right, Kevin, how do we do that? How do we support the SPCA?
So they can call our toll-free number. They can visit our website, which is really the best way, and there's a donate button right there. They can, email money transfer. There are all sorts of ways to do it, but go to the website, give us a call, and we'll certainly set something up. They can be a monthly donor. We have matching donations right now. If people make donations in the next few weeks, that would certainly help the animals.
Bottom line, Kevin, if you're in a situation where you're forced to make this, I call it an impossible choice, there are supports out there for you. There's people you can talk to.
That's right. And, it's I think for the people that, maybe their dog ran away and they're like, oh, maybe this was a blessing in disguise, better that you call us. Then you have that closure in your mind, too. You've taken it to the SPCA, to a group of caring individuals who are going to find a new home for your pet for the rest of its life.
Kevin, I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
That is Chief Kevin Strooband. He's a Deputy Chief Inspector with the Nova Scotia SPCA. Programs available out there for you should you run into this situation. Never a good idea just to open the door and hope for the best. There are people out there that can give you some advice and can help you out if you're in a dire situation with your pets. Very quickly, before we take a break for the news, I mentioned that Vanessa was wandering by the prize cabinet, and lo and behold, something did fall out. If you want to go on March 1st to the Rebecca Cone to see the Golden Girls live on stage, the laughs continue. It's called... We have some tickets with your name on them. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Caller number 6. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Golden Girls, the laugh continues Sunday, March 1st at the Rebecca Cone at 2 in the afternoon. On us. Good luck. We're back after the news. All right, welcome back to the program. Dan Olstrin along with you here on a Tuesday as we continue to roll along. And you may or may not know that there's an effort underway to protect some wilderness areas in Nova Scotia from logging. And we've talked about these kind of protests in the past. And this one came across my desk, so I was more than happy to to dial the numbers. And welcome to the program somebody that is currently, as I understand it, the president of Save Our Old Forests, and that's Nina Newington. Nina, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
I'm glad you were able to spend a few minutes with us. Camp Now, Need Our Wilderness. Explain what the theory behind this camp is.
Well, we're out here. I'm in the tent as we speak, camping to protest the fact that the government has made no progress to speak of in protecting 20% of Nova Scotia. And particularly, we've been working since 2022 to get the Goldsmith Lake Wilderness area protected. And we're not getting any traction. You know, we've identified 31 stands of old-growth forest, 120 species at risk. We're doing DNR's work for them, but they're not doing their part. The government is not protecting. Their progress so far, since they made a legal commitment in 2021 to protect 20%, they've added 0.5%. It's pathetic.
Nina, for those of us that don't understand the need for old-growth forest, why is it important?
Old-growth forest and old forest, I want to add, are important because they are the place that protects the most variety of life, otherwise called biodiversity, which is under threat all over the globe. Canada is part of a global plan to try and protect and restore biodiversity, which calls for protecting 30% of Canada by 2030. So, but that biodiversity is part of what keeps what are called ecosystems going. So the forests that are taking in and storing carbon and absorbing downpours before they flood out our culverts and roads. All of those things are basically free services that are provided by natural systems like forests. And the forests that are in the best shape to do that are old-growth forests, of which we have very little, less than 1% in Nova Scotia, and old forests, which we have somewhat more of. And we need to protect the old forests. Old-growth forest is actually protected from logging in Nova Scotia, as long as DNR recognizes it. But if we want any more old-growth forests, guess what? You got to protect old forests. So that's what we're working to do. There's a lot of old forest in the Goldsmith Lake Wilderness area.
I don't understand sorry, Nina, I'm just trying to get it clear in my head. There's a difference between an old growth forest and an old forest.
Yes, okay, good question. So old growth forests, there are different definitions. In Nova Scotia, roughly a forest with hardwoods in it needs to have an average age of over 140. And with softwoods, it's more like 125. I'm kind of simplifying that, but
sure.
Roughly they need to meet various criteria. Old forests, on the other hand, I would say are basically over 80 years old, over 100 years old. They're headed into being old growth forests, but they don't meet the definitions and the criteria that have been laid down by DNR. And so they're not protected in the way that old growth are. I mean, the reality is, you know, it could be a 5-year difference between whether something counts as an old growth forest and is protected already, or it doesn't and it can be cut down.
Nina, you mentioned carbon capture. Is there a difference between, say, if an area is cut and then it's replanted with trees? Do they not do the same job that old growth forests do?
No, for a couple of reasons. One, it takes about 30 years for a clear-cut forest to grow back to where it's storing any significant amount of carbon. And then also, in old-growth forests, about half of the carbon is stored in the forest floor. It's in the roots and the carbon that's in the soil. And that takes a very long time to build back up. So, I mean, in the bigger picture, we need to protect the forests that provide the highest conservation value. And that means they're big intact areas, they have wetlands, they have species at risk, they have different landscapes in them, they have, you know, old forests, as I mentioned. All of those things are present at Goldsmith Lake Wilderness area, as they are in some of the other areas that have been proposed.
Nina,
but the government isn't responding.
Can there be a balance between those that want to log and those that want to protect? Can there be a balance between the two?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're not talking about protecting all of Nova Scotia's forests or even all of Nova Scotia's Crown land forest. There will be plenty left over for forestry. What we're asking the government to do is to get on with its commitment to protect 20%. So, yeah, there's plenty of room for forestry.
Nina,
what there isn't room right now is room for conservation.
You mentioned that you are currently at a protest camp at Goldsmith Lake, right? Any concern? The government changed the laws on these kind of protests this year. Any concern that they might come and shut you down?
Sure. This so-called Protecting Nova Scotians Act is extremely vague, and it has very intimidating penalties. So, the vagueness is it used to be you couldn't block a road. And if you did, then, they'd be giving the camp 6 months notice. Not 6 months, 60 days notice. Now, it isn't just blocking a road, which we are, by the way, not doing. It's something vague like impeding use or obstructing access. And they don't have to give any notice. They can come and seize a camp, in theory, and charge the people who put it up or are using it, occupying it, which would be me. They can charge you with a summary conviction, and the maximum penalties are $50,000 or 6 months in jail.
Nina, what would get you out of the camp, other than obviously the penalties and having your camp seized? What would get you out of the tent tomorrow?
Well, if the government said, yes, we're going to get environment to do the formal review of Goldsmith Lake Wilderness Area so that we're working towards protecting it, and in the meantime, we'll put a freeze on the harvests we have planned for this area, that would do it.
It must be chilly out there today.
Not as chilly as it has been some days.
Fair enough.
But, it feels important to stand up for nature and also to demand that this government meet its commitments. This government committed to protecting not just 20%, but an interim target of protecting 15% by the end of next year, for which we got millions of dollars, $28 million from the federal government. If we don't meet that target, we have to pay that money back. And that's crazy. They could protect Goldsmith Lake Wilderness Area, Chain Lakes Wilderness Area, Ingham River Wilderness Area, Bealsbrook Wilderness Area. Those 4 areas where we've already got lots of evidence of their biodiversity. They could protect all those, and it would take us halfway to 15%. But they're not doing it. I don't understand why.
Nina, we're out of time. I appreciate yours, and stay warm.
Thank you very much, Dan. That
is Nina Newington. She is the president of Save Our Old Forests Association and is currently at a protest camp at Goldsmith Lake to try and convince the provincial government to protect that area and several others here in Nova Scotia. Time to take a break. When we come back, I mentioned this to Vanessa earlier today. Whenever we have our next guest on the show line, on the list of guests that we're having for the day, I know it's always going to be a good day, and that, of course, the founder of Hope for Wildlife, Hope Swinimer. We'll talk black bears when we return. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Our next guest, of course, is world-renowned for her work that she does in her facility, soon-to-be facilities, in Nova Scotia, helping out animals in need. And that, of course, is the founder of Hope for Wildlife, and that is Hope Swinimer. Hope, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dan?
I am well. What's happening at Hope for Wildlife these days? Busy, I imagine?
It is. Winter brings a whole different set of problems to our wild world, so it does stay busy through the winter months.
The reason for our chat today is you're in the process of opening up Nova Scotia's very first black bear cub rehabilitation center. What have you done with the cubs? Have they just come to your spot there?
Well, we've never had the legal right to rehabilitate black bear in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
And it's something we've worked very hard to get permission to do over the last 20, 25 years. And finally, it's going to happen. It will be overseen by DNR every step of the way. So we'll go step by step by step. We've purchased 100 acres of land in Cape Breton. We're trying to keep the location a bit of a secret at this point. And DNR will be the ones responsible for picking up the orphan bear cubs and bringing them to us.
So you're, as I understand it, this piece of property in Cape Breton is fairly secluded to give these cubs the best chance at surviving.
Exactly. I mean, we had the choice. We could have put it right here at Hope for Wildlife. We also have a number of triage centers set up all over the province. So we had choices. But, you know, having it at the farm or here at Hope for Wildlife and Seaforth would have its benefits, but it's also a busy spot. As you can imagine, we get 7,000 animals in through each and every year. So we're thinking a more quiet setting that can just focus on just the black bear cubs would be best for them in the long run, for sure.
Obviously, there's a need for this, Hope. How big is the need? And I know we're starting to see, at least reading more about encounters with black bears and humans in Nova Scotia.
Exactly. I think there's so many contributing factors to why this is very timely and important. I think the more we show, you know, the caring of helping injured and orphaned wildlife, usually always due to human-wildlife conflicts, most of what we get in will probably be hit by car mothers that were killed and the babies are left behind. But we do feel there's a need, and I think it teaches young people and old people, everybody, that caring about our wildlife is very important, and it's okay to care. If we've caused a problem, we have a responsibility to help that animal through and getting them back out to the wild. I doubt we'll get more than a handful to start, but it will be interesting to see with climate change and fires and drought and everything else that's being thrown at us these days, we are seeing that reflected in the way our natural world is behaving. So it may have an effect.
Is it a large facility? And did you have to have, or did people have to have specialized training to run it?
Absolutely. We're very lucky that we attract staff from all over Canada and further away. So many of our current volunteers and paid staff have had experience rehabilitating black bears. We're very lucky to have Dr. Sherry Cox, who oversees our hospital here at Hope for Wildlife. She runs a black bear rehab in Ontario. She works very closely with Bear With Us. So we've got all this amazing support. And I think what happened too, where we're the sort of the last ones to come on board. There's so much expertise out there. All we need to do is holler out and somebody will help us with a problem, help us get going too. Just creating the facility will be a lot of work. Things you don't even think about, you know, getting the building plans all drawn up, what kind of gauge wire, what's going to be safe, what kind of security systems, alarm systems, camera systems we'll have in place, how we build it. We all know bears can climb.
Right.
So, you know, how we build it to keep them secure, and the medical aspects of vaccinations and medical care. Also, maybe we'd be able to get involved in tracking a released black bear, but that would be future, and that would be up to Department of Natural Resources. But, you know, we need areas to do the black bear exam when it comes in, a separate area for the bears before they're weaned, and then another great big area for after they're weaned, because they are climbers. So, you know, the unit should have lots of trees and natural setting. Even we'll probably have some man-made ponds in there because we know they like to swim too.
Doesn't everybody? I mean, I like to have a swim every once in a while. Get the bugs off me. Anyway, Hope, you mentioned earlier that this is the first time you've been able to rehabilitate bears. Was there the rules had to change, or was DNR resistant, or how did that all fold out?
Well, it was never licensed in Nova Scotia, and you know, it takes time. I remember when I started in wildlife rehab, we weren't allowed to rehab bobcats, and we're allowed to do that now. We weren't allowed to rehab white-tailed deer fawns, and we're allowed to do that now. So things are slowly and gradually changing. They put in the high standards, and it's up to us if we're interested and can build a facility to the requirements needed and can meet those standards, and we'll be heavily watched and inspected, I'm sure, to make sure we're doing everything proper.
Do you have a big date circled on your calendar when you're going to open it?
Well, I'm always the optimist, so I'm thinking that some of the spring bears that come in will be able to be rehabilitated next year. So I know winter's a hard time to get work done, but I'm going to be so ready to break ground. We've already blazed the trail in and started on the drawings and started to even get quotes and line people up for the early spring. So hopefully it won't be too hard a winter and we'll be able to get in there and start work very early in the spring and maybe have a spring opening.
Hope, we know that this time of the year, the Christmas season's always a busy time for you out at your facility in Seaforth, but can be cute too. Are you planning anything for the holidays for the animals out there?
Well, we are still open every Saturday right through till spring. So we do encourage people to come out to visit. And we certainly, where we weren't able to have our big open house this year, we're thinking about having some smaller little events. So watch our website for that. We have our 50/50 raffle going right now, hoperaffle.ca. Great Christmas gift for someone. We're going to be drawing the winner before Christmas. So we want to try and get that as high as we can just to help with the year-end costs.
You mentioned when you put the Hope Swinimer bat signal up into the sky when you need some work done like this facility, people come running. If somebody wants to give you a helping hand with this project or something else that's going on or at the facility, what's the best way to do that, Hope?
It's probably the best way is to go to our website, and there's lots of different ways to help. You can just make a straightforward donation. We actually have a GoFundMe page for our program to build for bears, and we're really hoping to get some money in on that. So we've already got a bit in there to help with starting to clear the land and that kind of thing. So lots of ways to donate. You can even do it in honor of someone, a great Christmas gift. We give you a little card, and it just says a donation has been made in your honor by so-and-so. It's a great little Christmas gift for those people that have everything they need.
Hope, always a pleasure. I appreciate your time. Best of luck.
Thank you so much. You take care.
That is Hope Swinimer, Hope from Wildlife. If you've not been out there on one of those Saturdays, I encourage you to do it. It's a lot of fun. They do some really, really great work there, and you can go and tour the facility and see all the animals that Hope brings in every 7,000 a year. She said 7,000 animals every year into Hope for Wildlife. Black bear is the latest to be in the fold for Hope for Wildlife, and anecdotally, and speaking with people out in my circles out in the woods and stuff, are seeing more black bears in the closer to the urban areas now. And of course, when there's interactions, as Hope said, then sometimes there's orphan cubs, and it's nice to hear that those orphan cubs will get a chance to be rehabilitated and then sent back into the wild here in Nova Scotia. Hope always does great work. We're going to take a break for the news at the top of the hour. On the other side of it, of course, traditional time to open up the telephone lines for the open hour. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That's the number. Lots to talk about out there. Some want to continue the conversation that we had yesterday on the budget. We know that City Council is sharpening their pencils as we speak, and the latest in the budget deliberations are underway. Some of the numbers yesterday that came out during Councillors on the Hot Seat were quite large, including the bike lanes and bus rapid transit and the Windsor Street Exchange and the Forum, those kind of things. But the most interactions I got yesterday from both you on the phones, which I truly appreciate, and the emails, which I read each and every one, were your concerns about salary increases for regional council as we go through this process. Is it a good look for HRM council and the mayor to take a 4% increase in their salaries when we're looking at a 10.5% increase in taxes to cover the bills? Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Normal rules apply. The open hour is yours. You can talk about whatever it is that is on your mind, and I'm looking forward to it right after Blake updates us on the news. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show on a Tuesday. I'm Dan Olstrand. Glad you're able to spend some time with us. It is now time for the open hour. The lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Your chance to talk about whatever it is that is on your mind, and that's the beauty of open line radio. A couple of topics of discussion over the last several days, of course, have been the ongoing debate over the city budget, HRM's budget, and an increase of 10.5% in taxes. The main talking point yesterday was, of course, this is what happens when you don't turn your ringer off. There's an actual update that just came in. So look at that, breaking news right here on the Todd Veinotte Show, and my phone tipped me off to it. Halifax Water is now advising impacted customers by the Waverley Road water main repair that the precautionary boil water advisory that was issued on Sunday has been lifted, effective immediately. Once again, Halifax Water advising customers impacted by the Waverley Road water main repair that the precautionary boil water advisory that was issued on Sunday has been lifted immediately. That's the 2,000 customers for those along Waverley Road, Spider Lake, Montague Road, Keystone Village, Port Wallace, Montebello, Craigwood Estates, and Avenue du Portage. The water is safe for consumption and use after you have a couple of steps here. And bear with me, I'm reading this as just came across my desk. So the water will be safe for consumption and use after impacted customers complete the following steps, all right? Fridges and other appliances that store water, that's you guys with the automatic ice cube trays or the cold water taps on the front doors of your fridges. You need to flush those for 10 minutes. And get rid of any ice that's been made by your ice maker or your ice cube tray during the boil water advisory. And Halifax says this will be the last update on this. So the good news for those of you that since Sunday have been boiling your water in the Waverley Road area after that big water main break, the boil water advisory is now over. There you have it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Lines are wide open, folks. An opportunity to get in very quickly here on the open hour. We were talking about the council debate that is underway today. And they are currently in a budget meeting right now and going over the budget. Part of that is the 3-year capital spend plan that at least one of our counselors on the show yesterday didn't have much of a problem with. And if you have had an opportunity to log on to the website, to the Halifax website, those numbers are all available there for you folks. And there are some numbers there that are quite staggering, that the expenditures over the next 3 years are eye-opening, to say the least. And, of course, one of them is one of our favorite topics here on the Todd Veinotte Show, and that, of course, is the AAA bike lane network. We're talking well over $60 to $70 million more over the next 3 years to build those. Also, the Halifax Forum is on that list. I know that there are some of you out there that want to see us protect the historic building that is the Halifax Forum, but there's a significant amount, millions, tens of millions of dollars that need to be spent on that facility. Some suggesting it could go as high as $100 million before it's all said and done for a nice surface and a trade show venue. Also on that list is some significant spending on replacing, the articulated buses, the bendy buses, the ones that have the bend in the middle, and also on top of that, replacing diesel buses with electrified buses and the upgrades to the transit facility. These are multi-million dollar, multi-tens of millions of dollars projects that are some that have raised your attention on the program. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Very quickly before we get to the phone lines, I got an email from Paul, and it reads, in all fairness, the raises are insignificant when it comes to the budget, and many staff make a larger salary than the council members. The real issue with council is in the ability to make tough choices. Yes, cuts to service should be on the table, as well as bike lanes, the forum, and other incentives that are not needed to run the city. Paul's email reads, they scream about making the environment and a city for their children in the future. Well, I have a little secret for them. No one will be able to afford to live in the city at the rate that they're spending and the amounts that they're putting up taxes. They have no idea on how to govern. Lastly, quote, why don't I run, unquote. I have off-putting personality and would never get elected. And that is a bit of honesty from Paul as he joins the show. And Paul, I understand all your points. I really do. But when we talk about budget items and then we compare the budget items to the overall budget is, in my opinion, disingenuous. And why is it disingenuous? Because it tends to be the reason why we just say, oh, well, whatever. 4% increase in salaries for regional council isn't going to move the needle on the budget. Isn't going to move it at all. But if you were listening to councillors on the hot seat yesterday, I asked the councillors to give us their gut on where they think the budget's going to end. And it got around that 7% mark was kind of where both councillors thought that this was going to rest once all of the pencil sharpening happens. By refusing a 4% increase in their salaries, at least they give the appearance that they're willing to make the sacrifices that they're asking us to make. And that's my only point with the salaries. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's get to the phones. We welcome John to the show. John, how are you?
Good. Let's get right to the biscuits.
Sure.
We don't need bike lanes. I've lived in HRM my whole life. I bike downtown. We don't need bike lanes. Just take care. We don't need to be putting $100 million at this. Really.
Do you ride often downtown, John?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, and have been for 40 years. And I can tell you the quickest route from Fairview to Goddington Street. And so we don't need them.
You're a braver cyclist than I.
There's 7 bikers on Carney Lake Road maybe once a month. You find me another 12 bikers that are on Carney Lake Road that they put the strip on. So we're going to devote $100 million to that. And 7 bikers ride it all year long.
Thanks for the call, John. Appreciate it, sir. Have a good day. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The argument, the counter argument to the bike lane debate that we're having here is that if they put protected lines, more people will ride them, right? And to John's point, he's been riding downtown Halifax for 40 years. I stopped riding my motorcycle in downtown Halifax because of some of the stuff that I saw on the roads. I would be a nervous wreck, I think, riding a bike on a city street without a bike lane. But that being said, is you build it, they will come mentality worth it? Are we going to spend $100 million on the chance that people will be using the bike lane? I can tell you that if you built a connected bike lane from my apartment to the Lower Water Street terminal, 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, I'm taking my car. But that's just me. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Open hour continues after the break. Open hour continues, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Email from Rob that reads, in listening to counselors on the hot seat over the last couple of weeks, and particularly their reaction to your question about forgoing their 4% raise this year, it's clear to me that council doesn't have the stomach for making cuts that are necessary to keep our tax rate near zero. They have millions of dollars on their individual wish list, and they have their hands out in our wallets to pay for it. We should all brace ourselves for a big increase this year, but also a big increase next year and the year after as well. That from Rob. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Chris.
Good morning, Dan. Did you think I was going to call today?
I kind of thought so. I don't know if I would have wagered on it, but I thought the chances were pretty good.
Well, if you had, it would have been a good wager for you.
There you go. It's on your mind.
Look, I just wanted to push back a little bit. You had a gentleman on Friday call in, James, his name is, made some suggestions about the property cap. And I just want to push back on a couple of things he said, if I may.
Sure.
He suggested that people who can't afford to pay their taxes go out and get a loan. He specifically said a home equity loan to pay their taxes. So now it's come to the point where we have to go borrow money to pay our taxes. If those people are having a hard time paying their taxes, chances are they have very little income. And they go to the bank doesn't care if you've got equity in your home or not. They will not give you a loan unless you have some sort of income verification that they find acceptable to justify and underwrite the loan. Secondly, James, his quote was, "You're sitting on a hugely valuable asset that you didn't perform any labor to reap the several $100,000 benefit that you can reap." Well, maybe someone gave James his house for nothing. He didn't have to pay for it, but I certainly had to pay for mine. And if you take out a 20 or 25-year mortgage and you paid, say, $300,000 for a home, by the time that mortgage is paid out, with the interest accumulated, you're anywhere between $600,000 and $800,000 that you have paid in payments over that 25-year period.
Right.
So that kind of equates to a fair bit of labor, wouldn't you say, Dan?
Oh, well, absolutely.
So for him to come out and say that you didn't perform any labor to reap the equity from your home, hopefully your home did go up in value, because the time you end up paying for it, you've paid at least double of what the actual initial purchase price for the home was. So that's a hell of a lot of labor, in my opinion. You pay, you exert a lot of labor to pay your rent, do you not, Dan?
Every day. It's why I'm here.
Your rent's not free. Nobody's paying it for you. Same idea. Also, he made a comment, the statement, "The assessed value of your home reflects your ability to pay." Nothing could be farther from the truth. The assessed value of your home reflects, hopefully, the value of your home.
Or what people will pay for it.
Or what people might pay for it, more likely, yeah. But you don't really know what people will pay for it until you test the market.
Right.
But as far as your ability to pay, there's only one thing in life that dictates or reflects your ability to pay for anything, and that is your income. Am I right or am I wrong, Dan?
Well, your ability to earn income, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Your income dictates and reflects your ability to pay for things.
Right.
And one final quick thing.
Sure.
Even if people have the income to pay their higher taxes, and many people do, or they're going to find it somehow, does that mean that really it's fair for them to have to shoulder the financial responsibility for this council or any council's rampant, wasteful, and out-of-control spending? Personally, I don't think so. And everybody listening out there, ask yourself a question. If you had a $1.3 billion business, is there anyone on this city council that you'd hire to run it for you? And I'll leave you with that, Dan.
Thanks, Chris. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. Couple of lines open if you want to get into the discussion. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We welcome Glenn to the show. Glenn, how are you?
Good, Dan. Thank you.
It's on your mind.
I called in yesterday and I spoke to the counselors.
About the scooters.
On your call-in show,
right,
there was a guy named David was criticizing some of the things I was asking to the counselors. Now, one thing he said was that I should be doing my research on what I'm talking about, but that's why I call the counselors. That's their job. I don't have to research them. And the way he went on a bit about me was that, you know, I must be having nightmares about these scooters. Now, I've been banged around all my life playing contact sports. I've had 2 car accidents. I near had death experiences twice, and I can go on and on. So I'm not afraid of scooters. I'm not calling because of me. The scooters don't scare me. I'm calling because I think someone is seriously going to get hurt. I think that the city's not doing anything about it, and I think they should be responsible. And personally, I think they should be getting these scooters completely off of the street. And he also said that his kids have 2 mountain bikes, and
Right.
and they're not angels, which if I was that age, I would probably be the worst offender on e-bikes and mountain bikes, you name it. It's not the kids' fault. I'm not blaming anyone that are on these scooters. They'll get away with whatever they can get away with, and it's up to the city to control them. So that's my main reasons for calling. So I don't appreciate this guy to criticize me. He can disagree with me, but his call in is no different than mine. He has an opinion, and I have an opinion, and his is no more important than mine.
Glenn,
so I hope he's listening.
Glenn, I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Sharing opinions, that's what this forum is all about. That's what we do here. And to Glenn's point, I think Glenn raises a very interesting point when it comes to liability. And we've had that question several times on this program, several times when we've had counselors sitting in front of us, and haven't really got an answer. Now, if to Glenn's assertion, if somebody runs into somebody else, if they're on the street or on a sidewalk on a scooter and they run into a pedestrian and there is a serious injury to either or both, then who is liable? And I know that some of you take exception to talking about insurance on bicycles, and I understand your point. I really do. But when it comes to a scooter that is a rented scooter that's working under a municipal pilot project, and maybe somebody out there who's is more knowledgeable in the law than I can call and clarify this right now. But to me, I think there should be a very easy answer to what happens. If I'm riding my scooter and I run into Blake on the sidewalk, and he gets hurt and he sues me, chances are he's probably going to sue me. He's probably going to sue the company that provided me the scooter, and maybe even the municipality. And if the municipality gets sued and Blake is successful, then that is money coming out of the coffers that you and I put in there, right? I think it's a fair question. Might be something you want to talk about. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Poor Blake, I threw him under the bus, didn't I? He's going to update us on what's going on in the news at the bottom of the hour, and when we come back, the open hour will continue. Lines are open, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back in minutes. Welcome back, and to set the record straight, Blake's not suing the city. He told me that he's good. He's not going to sue the city. But using him as an example, he's like, but I don't want to sue the city. What's going on? Anyway, it's all good. I think it's still a fair argument that, and if I'm wrong, and if there are protections or it's built into the contract, then we've asked, I don't know, at least a half a dozen counselors this question, and nobody seems to have an answer. So I think it's fair ball. I think it's fair ball question to ask. Who's on the hook? Should there be some kind of lawsuit that rolls out with regards to these rented e-scooters and e-bikes that are under this pilot project in HRM? Moving on, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Dave to the show. Dave, how are you?
Very good, Dan. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Just to follow up with your SPCA gentleman that you had on, spokesperson, and how things are getting pretty grim out there for the animals. I've been a pet owner all my life, along with having family and kids. And I've got to tell folks, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of cost. There's a lot of expense and a lot of maintenance to an animal. They can be your best friend in the way of a dog. Cat can be too, but dogs are amazing. But I'm just telling people, I almost detour people. We saw this over COVID. Folks ran out and got animals. We were locked up, more or less, and thought it'd be a great idea for their children, and then realized, they're like kids in a sense, that they don't want to be bounced around from family to family. So I'm basically saying, do some homework. I've been through it all, and I have a dog now that's costing me quite a bit. He's 15, medication, and there's a cost. And like I said, I think it's I just want to inform people that maybe he didn't want to touch on, but do your homework before you go out and get an animal, for heaven's sakes. It's a lot of work, but a lot of companionship as well. So, but that's not really why I'm calling. I get a kick out of people who get they get silly when Trump's name comes up and the tariffs, and now again on the potash and the fertilizer and what have you. But to me, we have more cost within. And what I'm saying is, I'm looking at water rates. They're going to go up here in Halifax 20
36.
to 30%. 36%, not 3%, not 13%.
36.
36%.
You're correct.
Right? Think of that. Over the next 2-3 years, we are going to have power increases. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
And each amenity here has their flaws. Like we've seen water issues in Fall River, or is it Fall River or
Waverly Road? Yep.
And we've seen a hack in our power. So we're not getting great services. I could say that about our medical system. But we complain about Trump. And another thing that's coming is property taxes. That's ballooning. We don't know where that's going to be. So for the middle income, and by the way, if anybody is renting, this is going to affect you too. Not property taxes so much, but water and power. And who's going to have to increase their rents?
Oh, I think the property tax will impact renters because, the commercial landlords are going to end up paying more tax, right?
On top of that as well, of course. And then your water rates, and then your heating and power is also going to be inflicted on renters as well. So it's not just home ownership. So my point is that we get our, if you don't mind me saying, panties in a knot, some of us. And by the way, where's our savior? Mark Carney, right? He had the elbows up philosophy I haven't seen any success with that, quite frankly. And that's another topic altogether. But I think the problem is within. We have the water going up, we have the power going up, we have increases all around us, let alone our food prices as well, Dan. So, but like I said, getting back to more importantly, animals, if anybody's been to a third world country, Dominican, Cuba, they're all over the place. These critters are all over the place. It's sad. And I hope that doesn't turn out here in our province. So I just thought I'd mention that. And I don't want to be a total deterrent when it comes to animals, but there are a lot of commitment. How about that, Dan? A lot of commitment.
I'm not arguing with you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you for taking my call.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I'm not arguing with you with regards to the pets thing. I will raise the ire of his comments, Dave's comments on Trump. I think that here in Nova Scotia, for the most part, I know there are industries that are feeling the impacts of Trump's tariffs. We're also feeling the impacts of Chinese tariffs on the seafood industry. But if you go across the border into New Brunswick, and you'll see the impact of the softwood lumber tariff increase on that industry. If you travel down the road a little bit further and you roll into Ontario and you go up onto the beautiful shores of Lake Superior on the St. Mary's River in Sault Ste. Marie, you're definitely going to see people that are impacted by Trump's tariffs at Algoma Steel. And I know before you call, I know that there was bailout money and everything else, but at the end of the day, none of that would have been necessary if those tariffs weren't put on. So to say that we get upset about Trump, well, we do, and there's cause to be upset. Tariffing imports to protect one's own economy is going to set up people or upset people. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But mark my words, Dave, if President Trump lets CUSMA expire, if President Trump doesn't negotiate a new North American free trade agreement and lets it lapse, then everybody in Canada is going to feel those tariff pinches. It's going to make what we've experienced from the Americans, hardly even matter until those CUSMAs come off, and then look out. 90%, I think the number is, of goods that are protected under CUSMA that could be tariffed. Then you're going to see downright pain. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Welcome, Len, to the show. Len, how are you?
You're going to see downright pain. 902-405-6000.
Len, you're going to have to put turn your radio off and just talk to me on the phone. You'd think you'd be used to that by now. Anyway, we're looking forward to having your conversation. What we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and Vanessa's going to run the commercials, and then we'll come back to Len once he picks up the phone. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back. A few minutes left here in the open hour. Let's get right to the phones and see if Len's on the line. Len, how are you? Len, are you there? All right, we're going to let Len stew there for a while and move on, as they say in the business. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Hello, David.
Hello, sir. How you doing?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Just a couple things. I got a little pushback from the gentleman there about the scooters. I guess maybe I come across wrong. I guess my point was trying to be, Dan, was this. And as you know, or I've stated, don't live in HRM, but if they're going to make a rule on scooters, either push scooters or electric scooters or bicycles, like I say, we look across the harbor at your city. Hopefully they make the rules for everybody. I don't want my kids or my neighborhood or any. I always look at it this way, Dan. I think there's more good people in the world than bad people, and more people that maybe follow the rules than people that don't. And I don't want the people that follow the rules to suffer from people that don't.
We usually do, though, don't we, David? Like, that's usually how laws
we
come
do.
out, right?
I guess my point is, if he's going to push for scooters, going to do this, and they're going to put bicycles, there's going to be a lot of pushback from people like me and my neighborhood and other neighborhoods, because it's going to trickle all the way down. So it's not just about saying ban this, ban that. There will be pushback. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
As far as the council, I heard articulated buses. Take a look out at your window sometime. See how many people are in one of those. What a waste of money.
Well, I will push back on that, because I see them on Roby Street a lot, and I can see right into them from my studio here, and they're in fact, I've noted it to Vanessa as of the last year. I've noticed that they're much more full than they were in the past.
You know what? I'll give you that one. Okay, I'll give you that one. But I just think moving around the city with articulated buses is not a smart move in very narrow streets with bike lanes.
Fair enough.
How's that going to work for them, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, we'll go 1 for 1 there. Anyway, just as far as looking at who runs this city, and I've said this before, and salaries they make, and I think, and you've said this too on your show, and so has Todd, I think the staff is running the city. I'd like to know the salary of the staff. I bet you it's huge amount of money compared to the councillors. And I don't. How long is this council still? Like, when do we go? When can we get rid of these people?
I think we got another. I think it's three more years. I think we have left with this council.
Damn, that's going to be a long 3 years. And going into the forum, going into all these projects they're looking at, I'm worried about this tax thing, just like you are. And like you say, it doesn't matter if you rent or you own, but it's going to affect all of us. And I just think the decisions I said before are really going to affect and hurt us. We got 3 years of this. I know when it came up to the elections, I voted for a mayor. So did a lot of people. And that's who, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And he's handcuffed. I think it's run by, and I've said this before, a bunch around the table who's a boys' club. $120 million for a forum, Dan? Like, really? They had pictures about it where they were going to leave the outside structure, Dan, and just do the inside. So they're going to leave the frame because it's actually a National Historic Site.
I don't know if it's been designated or not yet, but there certainly was a push to do it. There
was, yeah. So I don't know if it has a plaque on it, if it is or not. I assume it is, but anyway, to go in with a wrecking ball and tear it down, and I think it's got to be well looked at. I think a lot of things got to be well looked at. And just in close, I'm going to tell you what happened to that site. Back years ago, DND put a proposal in to build and work with the city. You keep the form there. We're going to build a new rink here. We're going to build a rink here, and they're going to make that complex there. And HRM said, no, we're not interested. So a lot of that happened where HRM wanted to do stuff on their own.
Right.
And I think that decisions on that might come back and haunt them on that site. But that's just one site. So I guess we're going to be looking down the road and looking into the crystal ball and saying, uh-oh, and there's a lot of money going to come across people's hands here, Dan, and a lot of stuff that we're going to have to pay for that is really going to affect us in the next 3 years.
You bet, David. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Take it. Okay, have a good one. Bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I don't know if the forum has ever been designated or not. I'm sure somebody out there can let us know if it has. I know there was a push to have it designated as a significant historical site, and that sparked the debate about the forum and if we we're going to spend 100 or 120, whatever the number is, on a building to protect the building or the events that actually happened inside the building. And that was the debate that I recall with regards to designating the Halifax Forum. It very well may be. I don't know for sure. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for taking my call, man.
Sure.
I just wanted to actually make comments about these scooters and e-bikes, but I also would like to make a comment about what you said about the Kuzma deal and the possibility that Donald Trump may just kind of let it lapse or maybe pull out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably right, because I think Trump just likes to toy with people, like countries. I mean, like, he knows he has it over Canada, and he knows that his friend Putin wants to take Ukraine. So he's just saying that basically Zelensky should just pack it in and say, that's it, it's over. That kind of tells you where his mind is at, because he doesn't really give a rat's behind about our country or Ukraine or probably the rest of the planet. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the scooters and e-bikes, okay? There is a lot of them out there. And I think one of your counselors yesterday said that he said he doesn't know how they're going to police it. Isn't that what he said?
Well, it's just economy of scale. There's just so many, it would take, lots of police officers to be able to police it every day.
So right now, it's just like it's like the Wild West. You can ride them wherever you want, and that's fine. But I'm just thinking it's going to happen. Someday, somebody's going to die. Either the person on the e-bike or the woman with a stroller with a baby in it that gets hit by an e-bike, and it ends up, unfortunately, somebody dies. Then maybe that will wake people up and say, we have to do something about this, one way or the other. Unfortunately, that's the way sometimes things work. Somebody has to die. I mean, it's seriously injured is one thing, put in a coma, broken back, paralyzed. But when somebody dies, that's kind of the turning point, in my opinion. So I don't know what you think about that.
Well, unfortunately, Keith, you're right, and we tend to be a reactive society as opposed to a proactive society, right?
Well, yes, and unfortunately, people die for that reason.
Right, 100%.
So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that.
Okay, Keith, I appreciate it. Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's hope that it doesn't have to come to that. But Keith's right that we don't. We tend to debate and hand wring about things and toss it back and forth, but no real concrete action until I guess our hand is forced in a tragic situation that Keith described there. Back to the phones to welcome Larry to the show. Larry, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Just the bike lanes. When I look at the cost and everybody talking about the budget to construct, I've not been able to find anything on the lost revenue as far as paid parking. Because normally when you do a job, you first look at the benefit,
right,
the cost, and then what it'll actually cost you. Have you or anyone discussed that on your program?
No, I haven't, and I'm sure that number's available somewhere, but I have not seen one.
Yeah, because that's forever. Like you do have the construction costs, which is a bit, normally it goes over, but you do have that. The other one point I was going to bring up is Nova Scotia Power.
Mm-hmm.
So the HRM and the province definitely have some skin in the game with the power poles, the lighting they have, and also site establishments that they are metered.
Right.
I'm wondering if they can actually tell or know now how many lights they have in HRM that they're paying for.
Oh, I bet you somebody at City Hall knows that number. In fact, I'll guarantee it.
Yeah, and I hope that it's audited and that those bills coming into the HRM and the provinces are audited now and looked at, because I haven't heard anything back from that. And what the actual cost is. Because it's got to be a phenomenal cost just for the lighting.
Right.
For the province highways and the HRM, that's for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Larry, appreciate it, sir.
All right.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Thanks to Ken, who sent me a link that shows that the Halifax Forum is, in fact, a listed heritage site. It was listed in 2003, so it's been listed for quite some time. So there's that consideration when we start to talk about the Halifax Forum as well. Last word today goes to Bob. Bob, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, sir. What's on your mind today?
I'd just like to get your view, or it seems like nobody even is talking about this. It's about this Veterans Affairs, this clawback thing that they're doing now.
Right.
It was on the news there, I think it was Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And, people they're saying, they got overpaid in their pensions and now we're taking some of the money back and all that blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think it was 100 veterans, if I remember correctly, that got notes in the mail, and it's a significant amount of money. Oh,
it's $60,000 and $70,000.
Right.
But are they allowed to do this, I wonder?
I would imagine if they say it's an overpayment, then yeah, I would think. But I'm not really entirely sure what the issue was.
Well, that would be their fault, though, wouldn't it? I mean, because a lot of these people are saying, like this one guy was on TV there, he was saying, well, he had all this paperwork in the right areas, all signed and dotted and delivered and everything, and Veterans Affairs are saying, yep, no problem, everything's good. Then all of a sudden he gets a little nastygrams in the mail there a few weeks ago.
I don't know the ins and outs of this specific case, Bob, but I can tell you that if my employer overpays me and I cash that check and spend it, and they realize that they're coming at me for that money.
Yeah, I suppose.
Right?
Anyway, it just don't seem right to me.
It don't seem right either.
I'm a veteran. I get a pension. Yeah. I just don't know if I'm going to be affected or not,
Might be worth a call to Vet Affairs.
Yeah, I suppose.
All right, Bob.
Okay, then. That's
Have a good one.
Buddy.
Cheers.
Thanks.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255, an important number to remember, because tomorrow we're going to do this again. Don't forget, tomorrow is Wednesday, so we're going to move the open hour to 12 o'clock noon to make room for Dr. John Gillis, who will be here to answer all of your medical questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Just commit that to memory. That way you get your call in early, and then you won't be disappointed. We're getting ready to take a break. Blake's not going to sue the city. He's going to tell us the news. And on the other side of that, it's time for Science Files with Dr. Rob Thacker. I haven't told him this yet today, but we're going to talk about the science of salt when we come back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes. welcome back. It's time now for Science Files, and we will welcome into the studio from St. Mary's University, Dr. Rob Thacker. Dr. Thacker, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Hang on, we're just going to get the right button pushed. Try it again. There we are.
I'm good, and you can hear me. Okay.
The science of making audio over the radio. Anyway, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 is the number. It's very interesting as I do more of these shows. I start to get into a routine, and when things happen outside of our visit weekly, and I see something and I go, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Why is that? Yeah.
I'm going to ask Dr. Rob.
Okay.
And that happened earlier. It was the end of last week or the beginning of this week when we had our first brush with Old Man Winter. And,
and you wait for me to come on the show and then ambush me.
Well, there it is. Well, I gave you a heads up. I told you before the news. You had 4 minutes to read. Come on, you've cramped for exams
4 minutes
before.
to read up. Yep.
And I think it was a municipal spokesperson that said, like, look, we won't put a lot of salt down in advance of this storm because once the temperature drops below a certain degrees Celsius, it just doesn't work as well. And I'm like, I don't know if I buy that. So the science of salt we'll start off on today.
Sure.
And as I understand it, Dr. Rob did his 4.5 minutes of research, and he has an answer for me, and I'm probably not going to like it.
Well, I gave you an answer in 10 seconds, but I mean, the science of salt. So, I mean, salt does work, but as you've noted, and as the HRM spokespeople have said, it's not going to keep on working as you get colder and colder and colder. So anyone who's lived out west is immediately saying, yeah, we don't use salt out in Alberta in the winters because it just doesn't work below around -10, right? And so for us, where we have a lot of times the temperatures between 0 and -10, it's actually fairly effective, although it does cause a number of other issues, which we can talk about as well. And so, ironically, people at SMU have done a fair amount of research into road salt, including my partner as well. So it's effective as long as it doesn't get too cold, right? And then if it does get too cold, then your best alternative is some kind of abrasive that is increasing your grit. So grit is the classic one that people will talk about.
So it's not a matter of removing the ice. It's a matter of making the ice at least get more traction on the ice.
Yeah, certainly if it's really, really, really cold, you're just not going to be able to remove and melt the ice. That's just not going to work. I mean, people would jokingly talk about using jet engines to melt ice in Alberta. It's like, no, that's not even going to work as well, right? So, but here, I mean, it works reasonably effectively. The key problem with salt is it's just not good for the environment, right? You put lots of this stuff into runoff. You're creating very brackish water, and it's just not good at all for the environment. Often kills things in roadside ditches and things like that over a period of time. Anyone who's seen sort of like the pile up of ice around the edges of roads knows that, roads are not actually clean. Right, they're pretty dirty things, and you can see the sort of like layers of different areas of snowfall and so on. It's like dating the snowfall, which is pretty cute. But
it's like the rings in a tree.
Exactly. So yeah, in general, ice, if we can avoid using it, in general, we should, but we still need to make the roads safe.
All right. So how does it work? The salt changes the chemical component of the ice. How does it work?
So what it's doing is it's impacting how water actually freezes. So in every little water molecule, right, you have H2O, so you have 2 hydrogens with 1 oxygen, and there is a little sort of blip of positive charge and a little area of negative charge, and those things line up when you form ice into this beautiful lattice. And so what happens when you put the salt in, right, you get all of these sodium and the chlorine ions that are in there, and then all of the water molecules will start lining up around them, sort of like clustering around them, and that breaks up this beautiful lattice that you need to actually form all of the ice lattice, as it were. And so if you have those sort of like impurities in the lattice make it harder for the water to freeze, but eventually it will. Right. Eventually it will just get to the point where it forms this sort of irregular lattice and you're back to having your ice.
You mentioned some of the ill effects of using salt, right? We know the benefits of it. You mentioned that it runs off and kills things in ditches, but it also, and many of the people listening to us right now will say it also kills my car because it's
corrosion,
very corrosive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty bad in terms of the corrosion perspective. So I know lots of people who debate whether having all of the corrosion underproofing on your car is worth it, but as long as it's done well, it really can be. And so, yeah, I mean, funnily enough, a lot of the alternatives that people talk about, they can be corrosive as well, right? So it's not like... well, there are some alternatives. So sugary things, those will also work. So we were talking about it just before. Beet juice has been trialed in a number of places, which sounds weird, I know. But actually, most of the time what they do with the tests is they don't fully go to one thing or another. They sort of like put a little bit of that in to make up for salt that they don't put in and things like that.
If I remember correctly, in my time in New Brunswick and Moncton, before I came here, I think they were doing a pilot project with beet juice because I was making the joke as if it's regular beet juice or if it's pickled beets because I like pickled beets.
I'm going to debate whether I lick it up at the side of the road or not. So yeah, no, not really, not where you want to be going with that one at all. So, but yeah, it's. I mean, I think perhaps the most efficient way is probably going to brines with probably the additives and salt as well, because with brines, you make sure that you do get it out onto the road before everything comes down on it. So you've got this sort of like layer that helps preventing all of the freezing and so on. So in general, though, I think most jurisdictions are pretty good about brining as opposed to salting after the effect now. Its application is better, too. It doesn't wash off as easily as the regular granules of salt, right? Yep. Is there a space age solution to salt management or to ice management, I guess is the proper terminology? I really haven't heard anything that's stand out. I mean, I know a lot of different sugar solutions, and we mentioned beet juices have been tried, but all of these depend upon you having a source that's comparatively cheap because you've got to put a lot of the stuff down. Right. So I mean, that's why at the end of the day, even with grit, I mean, everyone who's lived out west for a period of time say, oh, let's just go with grit. We know that works. The problem with grit is it's got to go somewhere. Right, and it winds up in all of your drains and so on, and it will clog those up. And so that's a bit of an issue. If you don't have big enough drains, you can easily clog up small municipal drains if you put too much grit down. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. And again, as I was talking about routines and doing this show with Rob over several weeks now, start to see things and hear things and go, I'm going to ask Dr. Rob that question. Hence the science of salt. But I heard from some of, as everybody knows, I was born and raised in Thunder Bay and in Northern Ontario. And this past weekend, they had their annual parade of Christmas lights, which is not scientific. But what was scientific was there was a bright streak that went across the sky that has been confirmed. The fireball, as a piece of a satellite that was. And we were talking about this last week. Yeah, so more and more people are going to be seeing fireballs in the sky, literally from the fact that we have so many satellites up there now. Starlink has just passed 10,000 satellites, right? So these things are designed to come down, right? So it's going to be more and more common. In fact, we get enough calls about this into our department where literally this receptionist is trained to say, was it moving quickly across the sky, like 2 seconds, or was it moving slowly, like 10 or 15 seconds? And most of the time now, people say, oh, it was moving fairly slowly. I could see it, in which case you know immediately that's got to be something coming down from low Earth orbit, i.e. a satellite burning up. And you mentioned last week, for the benefit of those that are listening that missed last week's show, that part of the design phase of these satellites, particularly the Starlink satellites, because there are so many of them, is to have them hit the atmosphere and burn up before they hit the ground. Yeah, no, they're literally designed to come apart and bake up or break up, both. So they're designed to literally incinerate as best as possible. There is thinking that's gone into that. There's increasing the surface areas of certain things within the satellite and so on, just to make sure that when they come back down, you've got very, very small bits, if at all, coming back down. Does it even hit the ground? Or is it very some stuff probably does, but you're looking at really small things by the time it's coming down, and they won't be very high weight. I mean, one of the incredible things with the Challenger disaster, for example, was not Challenger, Columbia, was that they actually found pieces of paper. Right, from Columbia on the ground, right? So there's going to be some very sort of like thin things which you think might burn up but don't actually burn up. And so those kind of stuff will probably get down to the ground, no problem with Starlink.
as I understand it, it's friction. When the object hits the atmosphere, it's like rubbing your hands together.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's superheat.
Absolutely.
And I would imagine the more dense or the larger the object, the more friction, right?
Yeah. So you're literally, when you're going through air at thousands miles an hour, right? It's inevitable. What feels like a wind to us is going to feel like a really hot dragon breathing fire on you, basically, right? And so all of the collisions that you have between all of the atoms and the molecules in the air are going to impart so much energy into you, you're going to feel that as friction and as heat, and then eventually that's going to turn into temperature that starts melting stuff. And anyone who's watched all of the videos from Starship's recent trips around the globe will see how those things can literally be burning plasma, right? And that burning plasma, it's so hot that all of the electrons and the nuclei of the atoms have started separating. That stuff will cut through things really quickly, right? So not only are these things designed to burn up, they're facing literally a blowtorch as they come back down.
They get so many calls that they know the response at the department at St. Mary's with all the space junk that's falling to the planet. Interesting times in space development, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. And then I got a cool story about that. That sort of follows on about that, but we can hold it for a while.
We're going to take a break. Yeah. That's called a hook, Rob, in the business. And Dr. Rob's going to wow us with all his details right after this update. All right, now get a chance to get your popcorn and get your feet up on your desk and get ready to listen to Rob's story, because it's quite fascinating. Of course, Rob is Dr. Rob Thacker from St. Mary's University. This is Science Files. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 is the number. All right, you have me intrigued.
Okay, I got the hook out there. So this is a story that came out on the 3rd of December in the scientific journal Nature, which people may know is pretty important. And anyone who listens to the show has to remember that I've often talked about the issue of trying to do astronomy when you have all of these things zipping around in orbit. And the reality is, as we just mentioned, we've hit 10,000 Starlinks. That people want to keep on putting more and more stuff up there. It's not unrealistic to expect over 100,000 satellites up in orbit.
It's insane.
Right? It's crazy. And so there's been a study done of what's the impact of this not on ground-based telescopes, which is a problem already, but what about space-based telescopes, right? Because everyone's like, well, if you're up in space, you're away from the satellites, shouldn't be a problem. Well, the reality is that they want to put these constellations up essentially in a nested fashion in height as well. So they'll be higher and higher and up. And that means that even the Hubble, right, in kind of a pretty worst-case scenario, but it's still something to think about. Even the Hubble Space Telescope, which has been around for decades now and has been this workhorse of astronomy, they estimate 40% of the Hubble images will be impacted by trails from satellites.
So it'll have a high-res image with a spot in it.
Yeah, and it's really difficult to actually take these trails off. There are some things you can do. It depends very much on the overall brightness of the objects. That's one of the reasons why we have actually had conversations with the people who are deploying these satellites about what they can do to make them less bright and so on. So that's a big problem. And then on the radio side of things, because obviously a lot of these communication satellites, and we want to put stuff up in sort of like doing certain sub-millimeter observations as well, right? So we're concerned about that, because anything you want to do with what's called long baseline, right, they will have to be a long way away from the Earth as well. So they're away from this. So that's a problem too. And then all of the stuff that's focused on doing things that are detecting heat, right? We look at those wavelengths, infrared wavelengths, they're going to have exactly the same problems as the optical systems, right? So overall, this paper, which has actually got quite a lot of interest from the media, is saying, it's not just a problem for astronomy on the ground, it's a problem for astronomy in space as well.
A couple of questions with regards to that. If we're continuing to build distance away from the Earth in order to have an orbit that you're not going to run into stuff, the further, my thinking is, the further away from the Earth's atmosphere is, the more it's going to cost you to put it there. Because you're going to need more thrust and more fuel and that kind of thing, right?
It is, and there's only, the other thing, that most of the time people talk about what's the maximum amount of mass you can put into a low Earth orbit, right? But if you want to go, say, higher, and people have talked about this, like at the moment, there's kind of a petering off of the presence of satellites above sort of like 800, 900 kilometers. And so one of the proposals is that we actually set aside 1,400 kilometers and above, right? And then we can put space telescopes up there. And, there should still be enough room, as it were, for all the constellations to work together. But it's just going in I think it's nuts, right? With 100,000 satellites, you have to work really hard to convince me there aren't going to be collisions and problems associated with that.
Even the strongest algorithm can't figure that out, right?
Well, it's just that things break. Right? Things break. And as soon as you've got this thing that's flying around and you can't contain its altitude, its direction, and so on, it's literally a rock flying around, then everything else has to make way for it, right? And the more of these we get up there, the more difficult it's going to be.
And it also lends more credence to a discussion that we've had previously on this show, Rob, and that was the theory of taking a space telescope and putting it on the dark side of the moon. What a great album name.
Far Side.
Dark side of the moon, and having it away from all of the noise of Earth and all of the light and everything else, and having its own space.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the astronomer's dream, and we've been talking about this for a very long time. It's great for radio astronomy, because even though for radio it's not such a big deal what's happening up in space and around and so on, at the end of the day, you do want to get away from all of that noise, and so you can literally shield the Earth. That's great. And it's the same to a certain extent with optical. That's one of the reasons why James Webb is where it is, out beyond the moon, right? So yeah, we would love to do that. The challenge is it's really expensive, right? It's just so expensive. And as much as we do spend a lot of money on space telescopes and developing them and so on, we only get one of those. Right. So we're used to doing missions that are sort of like a few $100 million most of the time. And so you're not going to put anything on the moon for a few $100 million.
It just becomes cost prohibitive, right?
Yeah.
But it would have crystal clear images.
It would be phenomenal, right? I mean, the one challenge with it is obviously what we call the far side of the moon is sometimes in light as well, right? So it's in light as much as the other side that we see, right? So probably where we would put things is maybe we'd put them down in the sort of like southern pole regions and things like that. But in terms of sheltering away from radio, then absolutely putting things on the far side of the moon is the way to go.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We got an email question. It comes to us from Mark, and it asks about light. And my email box is locked up here for whatever reason. Live radio is a wonderful thing, except when it doesn't work, right? Anyway, it was something to do with if light has no mass, then how can it have momentum?
That's, it's a tricky one to think about because we always associate the particular formula for momentum with what's called the low velocity approximation in relativity. So when you actually do the calculation fully in relativity, there is a component of the momentum that's associated with the rest mass, right? And so most of us will then turn around and say, oh, yeah, look, you've not got any mass, but there's also a component associated with the energy of the object as well, right? And so that's the key thing. There is an approximate way of describing the momentum associated with photons that we do, but really at the end of the day, it comes down to the relativistic formula for momentum at the end of the day.
There you go.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question, Mark.
I would love to break out the formula. So
there you go. It is a little heady for me, but anyway, we're here, and we're going to talk about Soyuz after the break, and Russia having a bit of an issue now. Science news calling it perhaps a space mission crisis now after their ability to launch payloads has been limited, to say the least. And we'll be here to talk to you and answer your science questions on the other side of the break. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. He's Dr. Rob Thacker. This is Science Files. He's here to answer your space-related questions, your science-related questions, whatever it is that's on your mind. If you have a question for Dr. Thacker, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. All right, Dr. Rob.
Okay.
We're going to get into the weeds here on the Science Files today, and anybody that has been anywhere near a social media site or anywhere near YouTube or anything along those lines, or now even with our streaming services, it's not 1985, Dr. Rob, when you and I would get up and look at a TV guide that was written on paper and plot out our weeks long worth of programming with a not even, I don't think highlighters were even invented then. Big red pen circles, right?
Well, it was like every day you'd have the newspaper, and if you wanted to know the TV shows, you turn to the TV page, right? And so, I remember that very well.
Now we have our playlists curated. We have our streaming services that spit out stuff that they think is, I shouldn't say they, it thinks is what we want to watch. And we hear the word algorithm all the time.
Yeah. So
how does it work?
So it depends upon which platform you're on, right? Because different platforms have different algorithms. I think what you need to understand is, and depending upon the environment you're in as well on a given platform, there may be things that are being pushed to you that are literally trying to influence you in one way, shape, or form. Right? So that's something you need to be aware of. And for those models, there are very, very sophisticated analyses of psychology based upon a number of factors. So anyone who knows about Cambridge Analytica knows that essentially was the scandal, that literally people were filling out questionnaires thinking, oh, I'm just playing a game and doing this. But in fact, they would be psychologically tested for their own particular interests and so on, and then material could be fed to them in a way that was known ahead of time to be more likely, you couldn't know for sure, but was known to be more likely to influence them. Right. Now, for something like Netflix, let's take an example. My understanding with Netflix is that's designed to try and give you things that you will like, right? And so the subtle thing about Netflix is it's trying to give you things that you will like by taking what it has and repackaging it for you, right, in a way that you will like it. And so that's kind of got the interests of the platform built into what it's trying to serve you, okay? And so when you look at that and you start using these options, obviously you're being influenced in your choices, right? And so the question is, how does that impact what you watch? And if we were thinking about learning about other things and you were being served this information within your little bubble with all of your filters operating, what would that, or how would that impact what you were learning and how you were learning about the particular subject you were looking at? And it turns out that people have been worried about this, of course. Scientists are worried about a lot of things, and someone's actually done a study, right? And it's a pretty neat study by a PhD student at Ohio State. And so what they did was they took over 300 people, and they literally got them to learn about, funnily enough, it was the crystal-like aliens. I don't know why they did that, but literally they had particular properties of these aliens, and they made one group of people look at 6 different properties, right, randomly. So you were basically given all of the information there and learning more. And then they would choose another new alien and put it in. Then people had to figure out stuff based upon opening one attribute or another attribute and so on. And in general, people did pretty good on that, right, because they were basically looking at all of the different possibilities and learning about all of the different things you can look at. The second set of people was given the same things to look at, but was controlled in terms of what they were looking at, right? So they didn't look at everything. They could choose what they looked at. And then there was an algorithm that was saying, well, you looked at that last time. Why don't you look at this particular thing again, right? And sort of like reinforcing their particular interests and so on, just giving them what they wanted, right? And it turns out that when they were given the new aliens to look at, they were not as good as identifying the sort of like things in common as the other group were, right? And so they weren't as good. And you can see why that is logically, because they weren't getting as much information. But here's the crazy thing, right? The crazy thing is the group that got less information said that they were more likely to get things right based upon what they knew because they were working within a very narrow domain. Right. And they thought, yeah, I know all there is to know about this thing. And then when they're forced to reconsider the whole thing, then, they're overconfident.
Right.
Right? So whereas everyone who's looked at the whole thing is kind of aware of their doubts and so on, and sort of trying to work on sort of more general, broader possibilities and so on. And so this sort of thing of going very narrow and then getting the wrong answer but feeling more confident about it should be really concerning, right? Because that particular route is playing out in a lot of things, right? And so it just sort of does remind you that if you want to learn about something, you want to go broad as you can about the subject and not focus in on the things that you find interesting.
Right. So and that applies not just to Netflix. That would apply to anything that you find of interest in. And we find it, and I find it interesting doing this line of work, right? Because I hear from people all the time who have their own views on things. And I think the end goal would be, to offer a broad enough view of what people are talking about so that people can make a better decision on things. But it's also very easy because of the way some of those algorithms work on social media and in YouTube and those kind of things to get caught in these so-called echo chambers and not get that broad spectrum of ideas, because you're literally, the machine is throwing you stuff that it thinks you want to see.
Absolutely. Let me say one thing, right? So this idea, although we're more and more concerned about it now, when I was a student growing up, one of my teachers would always say to me, look, I know you're going to want to study the things you know. Don't do that. Study the things you aren't good at, right? Because then you'll get more benefit from that than focusing on the thing that you love and so on. And that's exactly the same situation, right? So the idea has been around, but now we've got really good sort of like information on how it plays out in psychology of people. And now it's being leveraged by the technology, right? So that's what's really concerning for me. And once we get into this situation where everything you get is filtered, right, that's hugely problematic, right? Because where are you going to get the alternative opinions now, right? Because you can literally swipe left or whatever it is and just move on to the next thing, right? And that's not good, right? Not necessarily because, yes, there's a lot of low information content stuff out there. Let's be honest about that. And I get that. But this is the value. Sorry, and I'm not sort of like stroking your ego. This is the value of good journalism,
right?
Right? Because good journalism puts different ways of looking at things in front of you. Right. And yes, I know journalists have been criticized for giving too much weight to the other side, in many occasions, false balance, as it's called, and so on. But at least when you see the analysis, you can then see both sides to a certain extent, and you can still disagree at the end of it.
What we do here is, I call it loose journalism. It's opinion, and we live in the world of opinion. But if you consistently live or listen to our open hours, I've had my opinion changed on it, just based on listening to what people have to say and people making arguments on either side of an issue, whatever the issue is. I think is incredibly valuable, because there might be something that somebody says, that just a nugget in there that you're like, hey, well, wait a minute, I never really thought of it that way before, and then you can broaden your scope and your horizon. And maybe have a better informed opinion on things. Yeah,
I think it's hard not to have your decision framework become influenced by perceiving things as absolutes, like this is the way it is and so on. And then when you actually get out there and you meet people who are not sort of like moving in that particular circle, then you realize, I'm probably wrong about that on this level, and you can get a more refined perspective on it, right? And so for me, certainly, I do try and talk to people of all political stripes, and like, even though I have my own opinions, right? And I value being able to do that. I mean, I've been to Parliament Hill, and I've met with MPs of all parties to talk about astronomy and things like that. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, this isn't any good, blah, 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 tell me what the value, and I'll just have a conversation about it. And I've had on a few occasions people who started off saying, well, this doesn't do any good, turn around and say, oh, that was really interesting, thank you, I appreciated that.
It matters, it really does. Yeah. But I guess the last question before we take our next break on algorithms, Rob, is how is it that if these algorithms that the Facebooks and the YouTubes and the TikToks and everybody of the world are so reliant upon can sometimes be just so blatantly wrong with what they think you want to see.
Yeah, it's weird, right? And so I struggle particularly with YouTube. Like, I still keenly watch sports on YouTube, and I get served up things to watch that I never ever click on, and yet they continue to be served to me, right? And I'm just presuming this is the fact that advertisements, influence, and so on are leaking into the predictions that I'm getting, right? Because I'm not clicking on them. Right. I mean, one of the things, this will make you laugh, right? So having once worked in finance, one of the things that I'm interested in is retirement, right?
I think we're all interested in retirement, Rob.
This is the nastiest, hardest problem in finance, according to Bill Sharp, a Nobel Prize winner. And it's really difficult because you spend all your time building up money and then you've got to decumulate it and spend it in your retirement. And most people don't want to do that. So I watch a lot of discussion about this on YouTube, like lots. Every day when I'm working out, I'll watch a couple of these videos and so on. But then when I watch something else, I never get suggestions around that at all. And that's what I watch most of.
Right. You think that because you watch whatever genre it is, that's where you would be inundated. But I'm the same way. Like I watch a lot of sports things. I watch a lot of cooking stuff. I watch a lot of fishing videos and outdoor stuff, and you'd think that I would be inundated with that stuff, but I'm not. I tend to get things that I would never click on.
So here's the one thing I do get, and this will make you laugh: crypto and Bitcoin ads.
Rob and his crypto. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. Science Files continues. He's Dr. Rob Thacker. Easy for me to say 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phone, we welcome Joy to the show. Joy, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Your question for Dr. Rob, please.
Yes, just about October the 1st this year, I get up in the middle of the night. It was about 3, and I was looking out. I'm on the South Shore. Mm-hmm. I was looking out in the sky, and I was looking at the Big Dipper. It was a pretty clear night, and straight on the Big Dipper, and then you know how it has the handle. Yep. So from the handle, and then I looked over at my neighbor's house, and I saw, which is about, so the handle was 30 degrees. I turned kind of south to about 120 degrees because I was kind of just looking at the stars, and I saw this, I thought was a satellite, right, going by. But it looked it wasn't going as fast as a satellite, and plus it was bigger than a satellite. You know how satellites really go fast, and they're, but this wasn't. So I was watching, so I got the binoculars out as to see it. But when I looked in the binoculars, I saw a bunch more because I couldn't see those with my naked eye. And they weren't just moving from left to right. Some were moving down, up. Some were crossing paths. And they weren't going like the speed of a satellite. And they were kind of just up from the horizon. But our neighbor's big tree kind of intercepted and you couldn't see them. So that was basically the area that it happened in, around, you know, if you took the Big Dipper and you went over 100 degrees towards the south. So I said, I wonder what this is, right? So I got my husband up. He saw it. And he said, wow, what's going on over there? I said, I don't know, flights or something's going on.
So, Joy, what time of night was this?
It's between 3 and 4 o'clock.
3 and 4 a.m., so you were literally like 2 hours from sunrise?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we went to bed. And so the next night, I said, I'm going to get up around the same time and just see it, because it was going to be clear again that next night. And lo and behold, I saw the same thing in the same area of the night sky. So I told my grandchildren about it. And they said, "Oh, you're just silly, Nanny. You're just silly." So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, I got my grandmother or granddaughter instead over there. I said, "So if it's clear tonight, do you want to get up and see the stars going around?" She said, "Oh, okay." So anyway, so I got her up at 3:00, and so she saw them, and she goes, "You're not crazy anyway, Nanny." Yeah. So we just don't know if you know what this might be. It's in the same area, same time.
Okay. So I do have a theory, right? So you said that I don't think it's like satellites. So remember, satellites go at different speeds depending upon where they are on the sky. That's important to remember, right? And so if you're 2 hours from sunrise, right, that's going to be the time when at the Earth's shadow, as it were, there's a lot of satellites coming out of the Earth's shadow, right? And so the biggest problems that we have with tracks for telescopes are literally 2 hours before or after sunrise, because a lot of the satellites are still actually in the sunlight, right? They're high enough above the Earth that they're not in the shadow, but they're left in the sunrise, and so you see them. So my guess is, right, looking to the south to another direction, what you are actually looking at is a crossover point of a number of orbits, right? And then because there's a lot of traffic up there now, like several thousand satellites, if you were then using binoculars, right, to look at that nexus point across the orbits, then yeah, you would see things kind of crisscrossing around that area at that time.
Fascinating stuff, Joy. That would be cool, and I'm sure your granddaughter loves it. And we don't think that you're crazy either, Granny. Appreciate it. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That's the South Shore. We're not talking anything like Shag Harbor, are we?
No. So this is the thing. There's so much stuff up there now that, and there are intersections of all of the orbital planes and so on. So yeah, you can look like it. Well, if you see what looks like a train going up, then we know that's a newly launched bunch of satellites. They're going up. They're going to disperse over time in the orbit. But what you then need to know is all of these systems are basically sort of like concentrated in certain orbits, right? And so there are nexus points where those things sort of like cross one another. And so again, if you're using a pair of wide angle binoculars and looking through things, you've got sort of like several times the sensitivity that your eyes would normally have, plus it's 2 hours from sunlight, so you're going to be able to start seeing quite a bit of stuff.
Meaning to see with all the movement, right? It's going different directions. Like we're accustomed, at least I'm accustomed to seeing satellites moving across the sky, and you can say, oh, it looks like a star or whatever. And
but I mean, the thing to remember is the closer you get to the horizon, the more you're projecting what you're seeing as you look across the planes of all of the orbits as well, right? So it's always a problem around the horizon. There's a lot of stuff effectively going on because you can see everything compressed because of the angle around there.
Fascinating stuff. Appreciate the call, Joy. That was a good one. Science Files will continue on next Tuesday. We're almost out of time, Dr. Rob. Very quickly, as we talk about algorithms and scientific facts, and so thus and so forward. With people listening to the Science Files, I wonder what kind of algorithm that they get when it picks us up.
That's really interesting to wonder about. I mean, what's the algorithm decides whether people listen to the show? I don't know, right? I mean, I hope that it's people saying, "Oh yeah, he's sort of saying when he doesn't know." That's good. That's refreshing to hear from a scientist.
You don't see that on the social media very often. All right, Dr. Rob, appreciate it. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
That is Dr. Rob Thacker. He's here on Tuesdays for an hour to answer your science-related questions, and we try to stump him. We do, folks, but sometimes he's smarter than I, and he has educated me on the science of salt, at least. I guess maybe I'll have to let that one go for now. Thanks to Vanessa Vananez on the other side of the glass for doing all that she does each and every day. This show just cannot function without her there, and I am truly grateful to all the work that she does. Thank you to all of our guests, including Dr. Rob Thacker, for joining us, giving up some of their day to join us and impart their knowledge upon us. It makes for interesting radio, that's for sure. Thank you to all of you who picked up the phone, dialed the numbers, and joined the conversation. I learned something each and every day out of that open hour. And as we were talking about before, how important it is to listen to different opinions, because you never know. Maybe something will change an opinion, or maybe will affect change. We'll just have to wait and see. Tomorrow on the program, it is Wednesday. Don't forget, Dr. John Gillis will be here from 11 until 12 to answer your medical-related questions. And then, of course, we'll move the open hour to noon to accommodate that, and I'm looking forward to that. Until then, everybody, get out there and enjoy Nova Scotia. We're so lucky to live where we live. People spend thousands of dollars every year to come here and see it, and it's right here in our own backyard. Have a fantastic day. Be well, and remember, be kind to one another.